Alongside TSN hockey insider Chris Johnston, we're about 3 weeks away from free agency, and TSN continues to track the top 50 potential free agents, CJ, and any discussion about this is going to start with Mitch Marner. That continues to be the case, a big name hanging out there. CJ, you have a gut? Like, what's the gut instinct? That's what everybody is asking each other right now. Which way does this go?
Well, the gut instinct is he's going to test free agency. I mean, you don't get into mid-June without a contract as a player in his prime, as Mitch Marner clearly is, with a team that wanted to sign him the whole way along here, going back to last summer, and then at the last minute, go in another direction. I think at this point, it's very clear that Mitch Marner, while not necessarily closing the door fully on Toronto, wants to at least get to the point where he can have those kind of conversations above board, not just some of the private ones that go on around this league with all kinds of different players, and really look at what's out there for him. And this is a unique opportunity. This is a time when the salary cap is about to take its first meaningful jump in a long time. Marner's coming off his first 100-point regular season, and as I mentioned, he's right in the meat of his career. He just had a baby, his wife did during the playoffs, and so he's at this time where I think he really wants to look at what the rest of his playing career might look like, because you're probably looking at a longer term kind of contract here at dollars that very few players can command. So it's a long way of saying I really do think he's going to listen. I think he's very, very likely to leave Toronto, and we've got to see where he lands. For the bulk of the free agents heading to market, their body of work, their resume has been submitted. That's not the case with two of the Florida Panthers. You got Brad Marchand and you got Sam Bennett that are both continuing to add to that resume. Let's start with Marchand, because he was made available today. He was so at ease, CJ. Like, he sat there for 25 minutes doing a scrum, another 25 minutes standing around chatting. Mark Masters and I were joking, like, he seems at ease with the media enough to maybe be able to handle the Toronto market, which he's had a lot to say about. But what do you make of Brad Marchand heading to market? Well, I think he's done a lot for his value for two reasons, even at this stage of his career. Obviously, he's having a great playoffs. That's evident. He's scoring goals and showing how effective he can be. But there's also proof of concept here if you're a team that wants to bring him in, because we've seen what did he look like outside of Boston? It's work, right? I mean, that's always a question mark when you have a player that's so ingrained with one organization as Marchand was with the Bruins until that deadline trade. Like, you've seen, he's just a plug-and-play, difference maker for a team that has a chance to win a Stanley Cup here. So I think there's a lot of confidence in the market about him. One thing Marchand mentioned to me, actually, Ryan, was that there's a little uncertainty on both sides of the table with this summer, just because of the fact the cap is taking a jump. It's going to take a jump again in 2 seasons, in 3 seasons. That's already baked in. And so, establishing what fair value is, I think, will be an interesting conversation, again, with everyone on our board. But with Marchand in particular, he's age 37, but, he very much wants to play into his 40s. I think he's going to get minimum a 3-year deal, but very likely a 4-year deal. And it will not surprise me if his price tag ends up north of $8 million. So, that's not the kind of money you typically see a player at this stage of his career get. But he's also having a playoffs that you don't usually see right before a guy hits the open market.
Sam Bennett, he's a bit of a unicorn around the league. A player that can produce that level of offense, always comes through on the big stage. He has shown is a heat-seeking missile physically and not afraid to fight just about anybody around. Like, this is a very unique player playing the best hockey of his life on the biggest stage heading into a contract.
I'm going to go so far as to say there's no precedent for exactly the precise circumstances you've outlined there. That we've never had a player who is a pending UFA, like Bennett is, perform at this level right before potentially hitting the open market. In fact, right now, if you were to take a poll of our colleagues here in the press room, I think he'd be the Conn Smythe favorite if that vote had to be made in this moment. And no Conn Smythe Trophy winner has ever left his team the summer after winning that award. I mean, that's to show you, I'm not saying A, he's leaving, and B, he's not fully winning that award, but I mean, that's the sort of unique circumstances that are at play here. And there's 30 teams at home right now with no games to play. Their front offices are watching this Cup final and going, wow, we could use a player like that. He's very unique, blend of the offensive and the dark arts, we'll call them. Yeah, so I mean, this is a guy that I think other organizations look at and say he can change everything for us. And so, look, I think he's most likely to remain a Panther. I think there's a lot that he likes about the circumstances. We saw this last year with his teammate Sam Reinhart, who won a cup and a couple days later signed a big extension rather than going to free agency. But it's going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out, because he has made himself a lot of money this spring.
And it's not done yet. I mean, right in the heart of a Stanley Cup final where he is center stage and making a difference every single night, hurtling towards free agency.
If Tavares returns, I am very curious to see what that looks like. If they sign him to a deal, whatever it is, 3-year deal, 4-year deal, what's that dollar amount? And who has to explain it? John or Tree Living? I would suggest both. I would suggest both. But let's say it's $7 million on a 3-year deal.
$7 million?
I'm sure that's what he's asking for. Sure, that's what he's asking for. He might be asking for more.
I think here's the thing. Do you not think that if John Tavares wants to stay, it's going to have to be definitely a hometown discount? But can't you do it July 10th? Like what?
Yeah, but he's probably saying, I got to get my life sorted out here. You think I'm going to sit around and wait? And what if they give him the hard one and just on July 10th they're like,
that ain't happening. There's no way Tavares and his camp will let that happen. I mean,
no, that's why he wants an answer. He wants to figure something out.
But
and he has the right
allow
to.
Him to.
Of course.
Yes. You can allow him to go to market and say, yeah, you know what, this team's going to give me 8. We say, congratulations, take the 8. And you go and you look at other players. You that's the biggest thing. Unless you absolutely want him as your third line center for next season, that can kiss up into the second line center, all of that type of stuff, or play wing.
Who's playing second line though if it's not John Tavares? That's the question.
Well, this is where you got to get creative.
This
is where you're talking about trades. It's not about signings. It's about trades. It's about finding players within the league that need to change the scenery. We were just talking about how everybody's open for business. Everybody wants to. You don't think Brad Tree Living's working the phones right now? And
obvious, I'm sure he is. But again, if you're saying Tavares is your third line center, then you can't even pay him $5 million a year, in my opinion. If you have him penciled as your third line center, you got to have. What does Lundell make? 4.5? You can't pay a guy $6-7 million to be on your third line.
If he is your third line centerman, why would you want to pay him $7 million? That's when those numbers come. I just don't understand why Patrice Bergeron was at the end of the line and he signs for $2.5 million, and all these I have the comments coming my way in public where it's just 3 years at 9 makes sense to me, and I'm like, you guys are all
I know
insane.
It's crazy talk.
Dude,
and that's not going to happen. I mean, the Leafs. Yeah. I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, the Leafs have a history.
If I ran the Leafs, it would be very simple. We just gave you $80 million. You're going to do us a favor on this one, or we're not doing it. Sorry. There's no 7. There's no 6. There's nothing. None of that talk is happening here. If you want to come back and you really want to stay here and that's your only objective, you are doing us a serious favor. That's the only way and the only terms that this deal is happening. Mm-hmm. Take it or leave it. Go and find a place to play because it won't be here.
Yep. I totally agree with that. I see it the exact same way you do, but that doesn't mean Tree Living does, and it doesn't mean Tavares does. And that's what we're going to find out in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But
good player, guys. Scores a lot of points, scored 38 goals last year. For the $80 million, and he was a part of it, they won 2 playoff series. So why would there be such a need to bring the player back? Are people insane? They never won. Why do you have to bring anyone back? Get different players. Try it. What the hell is it? What's worse that can happen?
Yeah.
I'm so sick of talking. People are so
and
dumb.
Go out there and find pieces, man. And it might take more than a year. People don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. It may take a couple of years to fill out your roster appropriately. And I would say the idea that this, you have to do it for Matthews. You don't owe Austin Matthews anything anymore. He owes you something.
Yes.
And William Nylander owes you something. You paid them a fortune, and they didn't show up when you needed them. You don't owe them anything in their window to win. If it takes you a year or two, so be it.